Hello, my name's Paulson, and my final project is a real-time route planner. So what I really wanted to accomplish with this project was to create a software tool that manifests itself as a web page, and really just a simple user interface where you could enter the origin stop of your trip and the destination stop of your trip, the stops being both bus and train stops along the MBTA in Boston. And I wanted to have a relatively interactive map with the routes on it. And I wanted to show the various ways you could get around from origin to destination by mode of train, car, bicycle, and also walking. I really wanted to highlight on the map the origin point and the destination point, and then really clearly and concisely show the duration and the distance for the four main modes of transportation, and really just highlight the best option using some methods to figure out what I think is the would be the best way to get around. And so the motivation behind this project, I mean, I've lived in Boston for the past 5 years. I ride the T pretty much every day. I've had a car in Boston for long periods of time for multiple instances. And I've been interested always in kind of figuring out what's the best way to get around, because sometimes you can be riding the train one stop and it just makes more sense to walk, but you don't know because there could be a train coming in a couple minutes. And so I was really interested in creating a nice, very clear map that didn't kind of lead the user astray and confuse the user. I also had a really strong interest in working with public APIs. I really love getting to try to test out and really get to know just different APIs, and I feel like the Google Maps and MBTA real time would be very useful to someone, I mean, living in Boston who, I mean, is working in the software development fields. I also really want to work on strengthening my front end development skills. I'm in the job application process right now, so any help I can get strengthening, honing in skills is really going to be a good thing. And what I really wanted to do is, like I said, show as accurate a route as possible. I don't want to skew anything. So it's very obvious what the real world applications are for this project. I mean, it allows a very simple user interface where end user can search for the route that they want, get accurate, up to date, and also optimal routes. And going one step further than that, my project, my tool, gives a suggestion for what the best route is out of the top four modes of transportation. So the languages I used in this project, for the front end, I used mainly HTML, a little bit of JavaScript, and CSS for styling. I used the Django as the backend framework, which is all written in Python with a SQLite database, a very simple SQLite database, and Bootstrap as the UI library. And then so the APIs I used, I decided to just stick with Google here, and I used the Google Maps Embed API to actually show the map of the route on my webpage, and then Google Directions API to get all the information about the route. So many visualization techniques were used in this project. The layering and separation. I really had to make obvious whether the user was going to be driving on the road or taking the T, and also there was a big need to separate out the different modes of transportation, because if you show all four modes of transportation to get to from an origin to a destination at one time, it gets very cluttered and it's really hard to kind of decipher what you're looking at. Color, obviously, the T lines offer a very straightforward separation of color or of direction based on color. And then position, I definitely wanted to make sure that I showed the start position and then the destination position that the user entered right on the map for them. And also orientation. It can be confusing kind of looking at a map, so I wanted to make it very obvious that the user knew where they were starting and where they were where their destination was. And so some really big challenges that came with this was the first one that I noticed was getting the accurate route information from the Google Directions API. So I actually took in the station names from our homework 4. It offered a nice CSV file that I could just write a quick script and pull from. But when I just entered those names into the Google Maps API, I would say be looking for Longwood Medical Center T station, and the map would think I was talking about just Longwood. And if you don't know, those two areas are not super close to each other. So I really need to get these routes down as accurately as possible. So I had to play around with what I was actually sending to the API to get that. I really wanted to obviously represent the start and the destination point on the map, and I went through a couple different ideas of how best to do this, and I found that learning how to use the Google Embed API was really the best way to do this, because it shows the starting point in green and the destination point in red, and that just really makes it obvious where the start and where the destination is. And as you'll see later, also on the web page, I print out the start stop and the destination stop in those colors so they coordinate with that. Another really big struggle that I kind of wish I could have done more with if I had been given more time is to show as little data as possible. What I really ideally wanted to do was to show just the route given that mode of transportation and fade everything out on the map. I did not ever figure out how I could best do that, but what I did instead was split up the 4 different maps for the 4 different modes of transportation: driving, walking, bicycling, and by transit, so that they were shown on their own separate maps. So as you'll see later on in the presentation, in my little demo, there's a drop down that gives you the 4 modes of transportation right next to the map, and you can select each of them, and the map will automatically update with that route, whichever one you select. And then the challenge that came with the Google Maps API, again, like, this was really the big kicker, like really getting to know these APIs and really getting to be able to use them to their fullest potential. That really proved to be a challenge that had a pretty steep learning curve. I had to work with these APIs for a while to really understand how best to utilize them. And so moving forward, what I really want to do for updates, because I really did enjoy working on this project, I'd really like to implement, work with different ride-sharing APIs, like Uber and Lyft, and display not only the duration, but the prices for a trip, so that if you're trying to decide, should I take the T for $2.50 or the bus for $2.15, or there's a Uber pool for $3, then, I mean, just take the Uber pool. So I'd love to kind of implement that in everything and really just get to include that. And yes, again, moving forward, this was really meant to be strictly for MBTA stops and MBTA related travel, but I'd love to allow the user to input really any origin and destination and give this information. And then the one of the main things that I really it was in my proposal of something that I wanted to accomplish that again just did not get a chance to figure out how to get this working based on time constraints was to show the train position on the map. I really want to show either the closest train or the closest three trains on the map and show kind of where they are at the time of the HTTP request so that the user could see interactively on the map how close the train actually is to their stop. And then just some UI cosmetic updates. Again, I'm not as experienced a software developer on the front end, so this even just working with Bootstrap was something that's always a learning curve for me. I was very impressed that I could get the interactive Google Map embed working, but I'd love to make some nice UI cosmetic changes to make it look like a very modern, up-to-date website. And so I don't have the demo working. It's running on my Linux partition, and I'm on Windows right here to capture the software. So I have a picture demo here to show you how this works. So the homepage, when you load up when I run the server and load up the page, this is what you see, and it's a very simple user interface where the user just clicks from the drop downs and selects the origin destination. As you can see, origin is in green and destination is in red. This will be explained on the next page why I chose to do this. So as you can see, every single station on the MBTA, bus, train, whatever, is listed here, and you can choose origin, destination, just click submit, and then quickly this next page will load where you'll see your trip results from and then your origin stop to the destination stop. And as you can see on Northeastern here, it's in green and it corresponds to the origin pin on Google Maps, and then Longwood is the destination. It corresponds to the destination on the map. So it makes it very easy to see. And then down here you can see it gives the distance and duration for all the different modes of transportation, but faded out is walking. What I did was really just the simple kind of way, something else that I would love to improve on, the simple kind of way that I decided which ones to recommend was taking the shortest time, in the shortest duration of trip, in this case bicycling, and anything within 5 minutes of that also is considered a feasible mode of transportation. So in this case, driving and transit are as well, and walking is not. So I would not recommend walking. And to simply go back and choose a new destination, all you have to do is click change directions in the bottom left corner. And so here on the map right here, it defaults to showing you up top, you can see mode of travel, driving. It defaults to the driving trip. But once you click on the drop down, it'll bring you to the different modes of transportation. As you can see, you can choose walking, and this is a different direction that I had chosen, but it gives a better indication of what walking would look like here. And again, it's not recommended, but okay, bicycling is, and this is what the route would look like if you were to bicycle from Blandford Street to Northeastern. And here you can see transit, and all of these, as soon as you select from this dropdown, the new pages are automatically loaded with that mode of transportation. So it really offers you the most clean and minimalistic, I guess, approach to showing the very accurate, specific route without over-cluttering the map, without really showing more than you really want. And also, in the kind of same respect, I show the recommended modes of transportation, but also the other modes of transportation, just in case you don't have a bicycle or you're looking to take the transit, you can still see what the trip duration will be. So that's my project. I'd really appreciate any feedback, and thank you very much.